Good evening, friends, and a very warm welcome to all of you. This is a very special year for INTAC. We are in the 40th year since its establishment. It was established in 1984. INTAC stands for the Indian National Trust for Art and Cultural Heritage, and it was set up with a vision to protect India's vast unprotected heritage. Whatever is already protected by ASI are monuments like the Taj or Fatehpur Sikri or Brihadishwara Temple, etc. But in a country like ours, where we have a rich heritage spanning several centuries, there's a lot of unprotected heritage, and this is what INTAC is all about. And importantly, I must say that it's run with the passion of volunteerism. All of us are volunteers, and across about over 200 chapters around the country, we all work together to achieve this mission, to protect, preserve, and conserve India's beautiful heritage. And I must say a big thanks to Ashwita for hosting us yet again. And what our precious and fascinating heritage encompasses is built heritage, as you're all aware, and which first comes to one's mind. And those are monuments, temples, and other public buildings. But there's also natural heritage like rivers, lakes, ponds, mountains, etc., and various other natural features like the, fossils and petrified forests, the Jabalpur rocks, and so many others. Then there's intangible heritage, which encompasses customs, languages, crafts, and communities. Our own Chennai chapter, being one of the several chapters around the country, which is 200 plus, as I mentioned, we have been holding talks, walks, quizzes, exhibitions, and various other initiatives. And today we are very happy to have some of the winners from different schools. Are you here, children? For drawing and an essay on any monument of the children's choice. And these children who participated, we have 3 winners, 1 national winner, 2 regional winners, and we have 3 city winners. So we hope the others will also come by the time we are ready to give the prizes. Please sit down. Congratulations. I'd invite all of you to join hands with us on this momentous year as we take the founding vision towards the 50th year, the 5th decade of INTAC. May I say a warm welcome to Madhusudhanan, Kalaichelvan, the speaker of this evening. Many of you are familiar with him already, and he's also addressed us before, and we're very thankful that he's here for a second time. He will take us through the fascinating journey that Kalaichelvan embarks upon each summer between his abode and the banks of the Vaigai River, and how for the Chithrai Tiruvizha, both the temples, Alagar Kovil and Meenakshi Amman Kovil in Madurai, burst into festivities. The river banks become a melting pot of socio-cultural inclusiveness. We look forward to the journey through layers of history, architecture, temple traditions, customs, and more. Thank you, Madhusudan. May I invite Divakar to introduce the speaker, please?
It's my proud privilege to present to you the speaker for today's evening, Professor Madhusudhanan Kalaichelvan. Madhusudhanan is an architect who specializes in conservation and architectural research. He has been in academia for a decade, mentoring students of architecture. An active heritage enthusiast, his contributions in the field of art architecture, cultural studies, and vernacular practices have won him awards and accolades. He is a popular speaker on a range of topics associated with heritage, religion, culture, and literature. In 2018, he was the youngest recipient of the coveted Vedavalli Memorial Award for outstanding service in the field of South Indian heritage. Madhusudhanan received the title Ilakkiya Chemmal, recognizing his mastery over Tamil literature in 2019, and Saiva Tamil Arinyar in 2022 from Sri Dharmapuram Adinam. He is the first recipient of the Professor Swaminathan Award in 2020 for his contribution to the field of heritage and culture. Through his popular initiative Radham, that is road access to temples, heritage and monuments, he curates and conducts tours to heritage locations since 2012. He has been writing columns in the print media covering top subjects like epigraphy, unknown temples and archaeology. Madhusudhanan is currently pursuing his doctoral research on temple town planning and also serves on the government instituted panel for conservation of temples in Tamil Nadu. He has been nominated as a member of the Academic Council of Tamil Nadu Dr. J. Jayalalitha Music and Fine Arts University. I am eagerly awaiting for the completion and release of Madhusudhanan's long pending book on the social history of Saidapet. I have a vested interest because I was born and brought up in Saidapet, and he has told me some tantalizing tidbits about it. Madhu, it's long overdue. The floor is now yours.
So said my PhD guide, and thank you, Intac and Dr. Sujata Shankar and Divakar. It's really a pleasure to be here this evening, and a special mention to the THT members who are also here. I really personally thank you. I know what is the kind of team building that happens at THT, and with their annual lecture series happening online and on a topic that is very rare to get to listen. With that happening and some of them being here is truly a privilege, I should say. Thank you, all of you all, for making up this evening here to embark on a journey on this very, very popular festival in which not just the participants, not just the residents of the town, the entire government machinery is a part of it. I think the Madurai Corporation gets into this festive mode from around January, February, and come April and May for the next 20-25 days, everything that happens in and around Madurai is centered around these two temples, one on the south and the other on the northern banks of Vaigai. A festival like none other, and Alagar being the most fond, more like Tamil Solanuna, the local people call him as Mama. For the residents of Madurai, because Meenakshi is their mother, Alagar becomes their Mama. And the pera solli koopdumbode, the kind of relationship with which the intimacy that they strike with him is like you don't get to see it elsewhere in a temple. So when this topic, I had the fortune, I should say, of visiting and participating in this festival in parts. It's an 8-day festival. So I chose to break it into 2-3 parts. And in the last 2-3 years, post-COVID, I should say I was fortunate enough to visit this festival and be a part of it, participate in close proximity to the deity and be there in the procession day in and day out. And all the building blocks that goes into bringing up this edifice called Alagar's visit to Madurai was simply astounding. And I thought, I need to share this with people because this is truly a symbol of Tamil culture, I would say. It trespasses all the norms that we generally have for temples, temple traditions, temple festivals. Very conveniently it trespasses. And what he achieves by this annual visit is what is going to be understood by the end of the session, I hope. So this is structured like this. I will briefly introduce Madurai, just in case to get into the concept. Of course, Madurai, for audience here, doesn't need any introduction. So it is, of course, the erstwhile Pandya capital, a city which has been active for a little more than 2,000 years at least. And with the excavations that have happened around recently, the finds that we have got through archaeological excavations only adds more years to its antiquity. The Tamil Changam is synonymous with Madurai, a very, very unique concept for an academy of learned scholars to meet there annually to exchange their academic pursuits and get it approved and get it published. So it has certainly been a center for learning too. Going by both the Sanskrit verses on Madurai and the Sangam literature's reference to Madurai, it is shaped or planned in the shape of a lotus. In traditional treatises, we have prototypes for city planning, town planning that's given, and this follows what is called as Padmaka, or a lotus-shaped city with a temple right in the center, and the streets originating from the temple, more like a radial pattern, and that kind of a setup is still seen. Please be informed that the city of Madurai's master plan has changed at least for 3 times since Sangam period. So with invasions, with new governments coming up, with the new monarchs. So there have, of course, been changes, and what we see today still somehow retains the core essence, with the temple being the center, right at the center, temple of Meenakshi Sundareswarar at the center, and the streets originating from the temple. This is Meenakshi temple, or the city of Madurai, is basically on the southern side of Vaigai. Today, of course, the city has developed on both the sides of Vaigai, but predominantly the old city with the temple, the streets around it, the markets, all of it happens on the southern banks of Vaigai river. This is undoubtedly the cradle of ancient Tamil civilization. The more we work with Madurai, the more about Tamil and Tamil culture we get to know. And this is, of course, one of the oldest surviving culture of South India. Some words that are not there in the regular usage, dialects that are not regular usage, but what has been quoted in works like Thevaram is what is active in Madurai. For example, Gnanasambandar in his Madurai Thevaram uses the word Payya, which is roughly to go slow, to do it very slowly. Payyave Sendru Pandiyar Kagave, quoting Gnanasambandar here. That is a dialect that is available only in Madurai and seems like it has been there from the 7th century. From Gnanasambandar's time. And Sambandar very cleverly uses it only in Madurai Padigam. Nowhere else you get to see this usage of the word Payya to substitute to anything that means to be slow or to slow down. So in the Madri Pathomna, the dialect lane the Arambiche, a lot of things that happens around Madurai, all the cultural paradigms that are popular with Madurai, cultural aspects, parameters, starting from something as simple as dialect and daily food and clothing, all the way up to running of markets. I think it is in Madurai there is a reference on markets that happens through the day, the Allangadi and Pagalangadi, or the markets that are active in the night and in the morning. That scenario still continues. Madurai is very active by night also. So a city which has managed to survive with its traditions for almost 2000 years now. On the northern side of Vaigai river, almost 20 kilometers from the core city, is this popular abode of Perumal called as Alagar Kovil. Something special about Madurai and Alagu, both the deities are referred to as Sundaram. Swami is Sundareswara or Sokkar. Tamil la Chokkudal abdina Alagu nartham. So he is an embodiment of all that's handsome and beautiful. And on the other side you have Alagar again, Sundara Bahu or Sundara Rajan. So in the Urnuடைய, both the prominent deities, Shiva and Vishnu, both of them are Alagargal. And so Alagar Kovil, the place is called Alagar Kovil. It is a part, it's today a part of the reserve forest area. The forest ranges are also, at least from British time period or a little before that, it's called as Alagar Malai, and the deity is also Alagar. So this, like Srirangam, is a unique setup where the entire town of Alagar Kovil is for the temple. Nothing but nothing but the temple aspects happen there in and around. There is no domestic housing that you see. There are no industrial setup anywhere. Nothing commercial happening around. The entire city, tucked away conveniently, far off from Madurai, in fact, is what is all dedicated to Alagar Perumal. It should have been a very aloof area because this was one of the primary choices to land with Namperumal around the 14th century when the Sri Vaishnavas at Srirangam wanted to leave the city and protect the deity. This was their first point. This was their hideout first, and they managed to keep Namperumal, safeguard him in the deep forests of Alagar Malai. That is how deep, dense and aloof this city is. And this Alagar Malai, I think the first reference to Alagar Malai happens in Sangam literature. Ever since, it has been referred to as a place of Vishnu, Vaishnavite site, temples dedicated to Krishna and Balarama, happening there, and how the people brought their first harvest, offered it to the brothers and worshipped them, and the cowherds coming in, hunters coming in, gypsies being a part of the town there. So all of this is what we get to know about Alagar Malai from Sangam literature. Of course, post-Sangam, Silappatikaram gives us a very detailed entry on Alagar Malai. Somebody introduces Alagar Malai to Kannagi and Kovalan as they were about to enter Madurai, and there they talk about the dense forests again and how Krishna resides there, and about the kind of punyam one earns by visiting Alagar Malai, and the water bodies that are there, the sacred bodies, what happens when you take a dip in each of them, the benefits that you reap out of a dip in the sacred water bodies of Alagar Malai. So all of this is from Silappatikaram. So we can be sure that ever since the Sangam period, this has been an active center of Vaishnavite worship, and the temple has been very popular. It has been flooded with people, and rituals have been happening. And then we have the entry of the Alvars from around the 5th, 6th century all the way up to the 9th century. I think after Srirangam and Thirumalai or Tirupati, this is the third in list with the maximum number of compositions by the Alvar saints. All the popular ones who have visited temples, they've all made a mention about it. I think Nammalvar has maximum number of songs dedicated to Alagar. Then comes Thirumangai Alvar. Periyalvar, the foster father of Andal, spent his last days here in Alagar Malai after having gotten Andal married to Ranganatha. Andal's love for Namberumal is immense actually, but that is actually, on a comparative scale, I would say her love for Alagar seems to be much more active till date. The temples are connected through rituals, unlike in Srirangam. Here in Alagar Malai, Andal's presence and Andal's participation in the temple and its rituals are much more than even Srirangam. So that way the shrine of Alagar has been a popular temple. It's been a popular shrine, a popular place of worship of Vaishnavism ever since. That's how ancient it can be. So that is Alagar Malai, the front courtyard. It is a grand temple complex. Architecturally speaking, what we see today, predominantly we get to see Nayaka School of Architecture and Vijayanagara School predominantly. We do have some inner chambers and mandapams in the inner corridors dedicated to the deity by the later Pandyas, and the tradition of Ponvein the Pandyan or Maravarman Sundara Pandyan gold plating some of these mandapams, gifting a lot of vessels in gold and jewelry. These are the kind of inscriptions that we get to see from 13th century. Of course, epigraphically speaking, the oldest inscription is from the times of Rajaraja I. So that's all in fragments though. But the temple has been patronized undoubtedly by the imperial Cholas, followed by the later Pandyas, and then come the Vijayanagara kings and the Nayaks. But the privileges that the temple enjoys today, the deity, the rituals that are celebrated, the festivals, the dressing of the deity, the traditions that are followed, the protocols followed, the religious norms of the temple are all what have been framed and finalized starting from around the 17th century. So the traditions are certainly at least 300 to 400 years minimum old. We all know about how much of love Thirumalai Nayakar had for Madurai Meenakshi and Andal. I think Alagar should be in the list too. His love for Alagar comes out from all the donations that he had made to the deity, and making Alagar a part of Madurai, I think we owe it to Thirumalai Nayakar. The usual grand galleries by the Nayak kings, where you have really tall monolithic sculptures of various gods and goddesses. This is the grand Kalyana Mandapam right in front of the temple. Just a sample photograph to show the architectural craftsmanship that we get to see there. And that is Alagar Perumal, the Moolavar. We don't have an official photograph of him, but he is called as Sundara Bahu, or the one with really mighty shoulders. That's the name with which Andal addresses him, and that seemed to have been the chosen name by the Acharyas ever since Andal's time. He is referred to as Sundara Bahu, the one with mighty shoulders. And so there is an inscription from the 13th century Pandya, later Pandya period, about how a garden was established in the name of Periyalvar. We all know that he was a garland maker, and that was his duty at Srivilliputtur, and that he spent his last few years here in Alagar Malai. The Pandya king thought it would be apt to build a garden in his name and engage somebody to make garlands, and I think 40 muram of garlands only for the shoulders of Alagar Perumal. So this is how the religious beliefs, the commands of the Alvars have managed to seep in through years of history, and we have a king who actually materialized it for the Alvars. So that is how special Alagar is. That's a painting by Silpi sir on the Moolavar. So Alagar is super tall and handsome with Sri Devi and Bhumi Devi on either sides. You see the Utsavar seated in front of him on a silver pedestal. Here in this temple, we have close to 5 murtis used for different purposes. Of course, they all have a role to play. You have the Moola Murti, who is installed in the Garbhagraham. He is the Moola Bheram, and he is called as Paramaswami. That is another interesting thing, is that's the name with which the primary deity is referred to in the inscriptions starting from Chola period. So the Moolavar is called as Paramaswami. Tirumalirin Cholemalai Nindraruliya Paramaswami. That's how the Chola period inscriptions refer to him. So till date, the Moolavar is called as Paramaswami. And then you have Utsavar, who is seated in the pedestal just in front, and he is Alagar, or Kallalagar as he is popularly known. Sundara Rajan, that's another name for him. And then we have smaller deities, all representative murtis of the Moolavar, each of them serving a different purpose. One is taken to the bed chamber every night to be put there, the Palliyare rituals. One is the Snapana Bheram, to which the daily Thirumanjanam or the ablutions are performed. So each of them have a role. And interestingly, each of them are called by a name with which the Alvars have addressed them. Solaimalai Karasar, Solaimalai Peruman. So these are the names with which the Alvars have addressed them. So one has been chosen for each. And then in this temple, they house a murti called as Aparanchi Alagar, which should have been a Nayaka period offering made to the temple. Aparanchi is this very high quality of gold, which is extremely brittle, without copper mix in it. So you cannot actually work on that quality of gold. But there are 2 such idols made out of Aparanchi gold, both of them from the Nayaka period. Swami and Ambal placed on one pedestal, almost a foot tall murti, gifted to Madurai Meenakshi temple. That murti is also there. And then you have Aparanchi Alagar. He should be a little less than a feet tall, and so that murti is also housed in this temple. These are all how the kings have managed to patronize the temple and all the valuables that they have gifted to the temple. So Alagar, right there in the center, he is going to be the hero of today's session. That's the Utsava Murti. He's also always, mostly he's dressed with the Panchayudams, the Shankha, Chakra, the Gadai, the sword, and the bow that is as tall as him, with Sri and Bhumi Devi on either sides. If you're looking forward for jewelry design from the antique collections thing, I think after Srirangam and Thiruvarur, I think more than even Madurai Meenakshi, Alagar is the one you should be looking up for. The kind of jewelry, I should say in fact, some of these jewelry have been influenced from the works of the Alvars. Where the kind of gemstones with which Alvars identify Krishna's blue complexion, they have managed to get them. There is one particular pendant, what is called as Vandipadakam, which Alagar uses on specific occasions, which is shaped in the form of a vandu, a bee, with blue sapphire stuck in the center and one red emerald on top. And for the wings, again, they've used blue. And so it actually looks like a bee, a vandu. And this is used as a small piece of embellishment to the flute that he plays when he is dressed up as Krishna. So this vandu sits at the end of the flute. And what is the honey this vandu is going to get? Nothing but Krishnar Vahilendu Udara and the Echil and the Pullangural Valiya Pattu, it'll reach this vandu, and that is the honey this vandu is going to feed on, and that is tied up. This is directly influenced from Periyalvar's works on how the bees go around Krishna's flute, just in case to try and see if they are lucky enough to pick on few drops. So idu madriyana influences are very interesting with the Nayaka period jewelry in fact. So Alagar, I personally feel the Murti here should belong to around the 9th century early Pandya period because it's only in a few temples in and around Madurai we see Utsava Bherams or the processional deities belonging to Pandya period. Most of them have been replaced during the Nayaka renovation of the temple. I think we hardly have few temples in and around Navatirupati, Vanamamalai, Tirukkurungudi, Madurai Kudalalagar, Alagar Perumal, Sriviliputtur Andal. These are the Murtis that probably are pre-10th century from the Pandya period. The workmanship, the proportions with which the deity has been installed, all of that speaks for itself. Before getting to know about the festival, one word of warning, not from me, this is from Namma Alvar, wherein he warns the Tamil poets, please don't attempt falling for the beauty of Alagar. Don't attempt trying to sing about him or describe him, because I tried doing it and I ended up in him, entering my heart, devoured my soul as a wonder poet, ate them, became them, and filled them without my knowing. That's how he can be. Senjor Kavihal, Uirka Taatshaiman is what Nammalvar says. If you're bothered about your safety, better not visit Alagar Malai, because once you get to see him, you fall for him and he devours you. He becomes you without you knowing it, and there is no more of you left in you after having met Alagar. That's what Nammalvar says. So, to the festival now. The Chittirai festival is very, very popular. If you have to come up with a list of top 3 festivals that are popular in Tamil Nadu, I think Madurai Chittirai festival will win it hands down. This is a very interesting festival wherein the entire city gears up for it, and close to 20 days, with 11 days of festival in Meenakshi temple and 9 to 10 days of festival here in Alagar Kovil, both of it bridged together without any barriers, quite literally bridged, because you have Vaigai in between. So for Meenakshi's festival happening on the southern banks, it just gets over, and on that evening Alagar leaves Alagar Kovil and starts on his this very adventurous journey to Madurai, and that goes on for the next 1 week, and on the 8th or the 9th day he reaches Alagar Malai. So for almost 20 days, any Maduraiyan's calendar for April and May would be most certainly centered around Meenakshi and Alagar. That's how it is. So here, the Chittirai festival of Meenakshi is very popular. Generally, in Tamil Nadu, we see most of these ancient temples opts for their annual festival anytime ranging from February to June. That is like Masi, Panguni, Chittirai, Vaikasi. These are the 4 for sure peak summer months. And that is just after the harvest has gotten over, and people would be economically okay to participate in a festival or to contribute for it. And actually sowing of seeds would have just gotten over, so they wouldn't have got much of work in the fields also. And given that it is summer, you don't need to worry about monsoons, which are like, show spoilers when it comes to festivals of this scale. So putting all this together, most of the agamas also prescribe that the annual festivals happen from between Masi to Vaikasi. Those are the 4 chosen months for the annual festival. And here in Madurai, it is this popular theory about how initially Meenakshi's Brahmotsavam was conducted as a Mandala Brahmotsavam between Masi and Panguni, which is mid-February to mid-March. That was the chosen month for Meenakshi's festival. Till date, if you go to Madurai, the streets around the main temple, they are all named after the monthly procession that used to happen around those streets. Because Madurai has close to half a dozen 10-day festivals. You have something called as Chittirai Thiruvizha, you have Masi Thiruvizha, you have the Avani Moola Thiruvizha. So each of the streets around the temple, they are all named after the festival for which the procession used to happen on those streets. So immediately outside the temple, you have the Adi Vidi. So each of the direction will always be called that direction's Adi Vidi. You will have a Kira Adi Vidi, you will have a Merku Adi Vidi, you will have a Terku Adi Vidi, and a Vadakku Adi Vidi. So immediately outside the temple, on all the 4 sides, it's the Adi Vidi, wherein the festival for Adi month, which is mid-July to mid-June to mid-July, will happen around those streets. And then just next to it, you have the Avani Moola Vidi. Then you have the Chittirai Vidi, and finally the Masi Vidi. So similar to Srirangam, this is also a group of concentric streets put together to form the temple town. So each of it is named after the festival that happens there. Today, the Chittirai festival happens on the Masi Vidi. That's the broadest and the longest running road stretch, the last from inside in fact. That's really broad, and that is where the temple chariot is parked. So all the 10-day festivals of Chittirai month is happening even today on the Masi Vidi, the streets dedicated for the festival, which is to have been conducted in Masi month, which is mid-Feb to mid-March. So this by itself is a clue about what happened to the Masi festival. Why is the Chittirai festival happening on the Masi Vidi? While you already have a Chittirai Vidi, there's nothing much happening there anymore. The street only bears the name, but the Chittirai festival happens on the Masi Vidi. We all know that there is this popular theory of about how Thirumalai Nayakar, for a few reasons, managed to convince the temple priest administration and the common public to switch the festival of Meenakshi, which was initially happening in Masi, to Chittirai. The reasons being, one is, Alagar was already attending his Chittirai festival, for which he leaves Alagar Malai and comes all the way to Madurai, and the grand events were all scheduled to happen on the northern banks of Vaigai. Meenakshi's festival was happening individually, independently, all by herself, for her, in February. Yeah, to try and match and bring these two things together, the reason the Thirumalai Nayakar had was 16th, 17th century was when probably people, you had a lot of mix of culture that was happening. You had the Nayak kings, the Vijayanagar kings who have already come here. It was immediately after the invasions, almost a couple of centuries after the invasion. So the cultural fabric of Tamil Nadu was just undergoing a few changes. That is when a lot of academic discussions / debates / fights were happening. So Thirumalai Nayakar had this problem of settling issues between the Shaivite and the Vaishnavite factions. You have enough epigraphs which stands testimony to this fact that from around the 15th, 16th century, we see the Shaivite and the Vaishnavite settlements. I mean, every village will have one Shaivite and a Vaishnavite settlement, one temple for Shiva and one for Vishnu. They were into arguments, into fights, and for a city like Madurai, with its population and the kind of scholars who were residents of Madurai, this was happening on a regular basis. So Thirumalai Nayakar thought, in a way, to bridge the gap between these two denominations and try and see if it can be disguised in the name of bringing the gods together by striking a kind of a relationship with them would be possible. And that is, I think, that's the idea behind trying to switch over Meenakshi's festival from mid-Feb, mid-March, all the way up to mid-April, mid-May. So Alagar's festival has not been changed. It's been happening the same way. But Meenakshi's festival that used to happen in the Masi Veedi, in the month of Masi, had been shifted over to Chittirai, but still happens on the Masi Veedi. So the schedule has been framed in a way that Meenakshi's festival starts first with the flag hoisting and the 10 days of festival. We have Digvijayam, we have Thirukalyanam. It's a separate world by itself. I think people participate in it, become a part of it, celebrate it. I'm sure you would have all seen video clippings on how Meenakshi's Thirukalyanam is celebrated at almost every household in Madurai. All of them participate in it. So that happens, and people are all engaged, concentrated around the southern banks of Madurai, southern banks of Vaigai. So on the day of Tirutherottam, or the chariot being pulled around the streets, which is a day after the wedding ceremony of Meenakshi and Sundareshwara, that evening, most probably that evening, Alagar leaves on his journey to Madurai from Alagar Malai. So Meenakshi's festival comes to a close by the time Alagar enters even the outskirts of Madurai. So the entire population that was frequenting the southern banks of Vaigai crosses the river, comes on the northern side, and that becomes the most happening area for the next 1 week. For reasons best known to the kings and the gods probably, Meenakshi never crosses Vaigai to come to the northern side, nor does Alagar crosses the river to go to the other side. The festival is only centered around Vaigaile Aathila Yerangardu, which means he only gets into the river, dips his feet there, and then comes back. So there is no business of crossing the river for both the gods. Seems to be some kind of a religious boundary that has been drawn for both of them to have their own limits, and Meenakshi's is all on the south side, and Alagar restricts himself to the northern side. So Meenakshi Thirukalyanam and Thirumalai Nayakar's idea to bridge it is very interesting. In fact, this is also a 10-day festival at Alagar Kovil, but this is not the annual festival, because any annual festival will demand a chariot being taken around. So the chariot festival in Alagar Kovil happens in the month of Adi, which is mid-July to mid-August, with Adi Amavasai as the primary date. You have the Alagar's Brahmotsavam that happens all by itself. With time passing on, the popular folklore of how Meenakshi is identified as the younger sister of Alagar, and Alagar's journey, which has nothing to do with Meenakshi's Thirukalyanam, being brought into a folklore, a very interesting folklore, and I would say they were extremely successful at it, to bring both these things together, and the belief that Alagar actually leaves Alagar Kovil and comes to attend Meenakshi's Thirukalyanam, his sister's wedding of course, and on his way, people, moved by his presence and his arrival, host him in every village, every town as he crosses, and his journey is delayed by like 2 or 3 days, and Meenakshi's wedding ceremony is all over. Alagar reaches north banks of Vaigai, I think 2-3 days after the wedding ceremony, gets to know from the local public that the wedding got over. He is annoyed with this, and without entering Madurai, he goes back to Alagar Malai. So this is a popular folklore. Anybody, an average Madurai citizen, you ask them, I think this is their firm belief, and this is what they say. And Meenakshi, that is why I said, Meenakshi, when she is called as Amma, Alagar becomes their Mama. So the sister-brother sentiment is brought in, and it is a very common concept that you see there. வீட்டில் ஒரு ஆண் குழந்தை ஒரு பொன் குழந்தை இருந்தால் மீனாட்சி அழகன் இல்லை அந்த மாதிரி பேர் வைக்கிறதே அங்கே வழக்கம் உண்டு. So they are like brothers. The brother-sister sibling relationship is something that at least within the common public, the differences kind of vanished over years. The Shaivite Vaishnavite differences kind of vanished, and today both these festivals are for the residents of Madurai a continuation, and Alagar comes to Madurai, they firmly believe is to participate in the wedding, to attend the wedding, but unfortunately delayed by his devotees. He is annoyed that the festival got over, the wedding got over, and he leaves to Madurai. So this is the common belief. I think Thirumalai Nayakar's strategy has really worked out well. So, if it is not for attending the wedding, why is Alagar taking up this trip? Why is he leaving Alagar Malai and with his entire band of devotees and all of them from Alagar Malai? They in fact vacate the temple with him, and there is nothing happening in the temple for the next 1 week. So, why take up this, this task of walking all the way from Alagar Malai to Madurai? Well, that is where the Stalapuranam of the temple helps us. One part of the Stalapuranam talks about how there was a resident, a rishi, a yogi, a resident of Alagar Malai called Sutapas, a munivar called Sutapas. He was a resident there and he was engaged in his own tapas. Durvasar, who is known for his anger, once along with his disciples visit Alagar Malai. As he was walking through the forest, he notices Sutapas in a very deep meditative state. But Durvasar's way of handling things, he disturbs him and asks him, how is it possible for you to sit when I am coming in? Yeah, well known that Durvasar is coming. How could you avoid me? How could you engage in a penance when I am crossing you? Sutapas had no answer. He just kept quiet. Durvasar was further annoyed by it and cursed him to become a frog, a mandukam. நான் கேட்ட கேள்விக்கு because you never answered, become this frog which will keep croaking always without any meaning. Yeah, let that be your curse on you. And as in all other traditional stories, Sudapas requests him, manages to seek apology, and finally asks him what is the way out of the curse. And he says, well, on the day after the full moon of Chittirai month, Alagar Perumal will come there on his hunting spree, and when he is riding his horse, and when the horse enters the waters of Vaigai river, that is when your curse will be, you will be relieved of your curse. So this is the story which had made Alagar's visit to Vaigai possible, and it is every year repeated to grant moksham to Sudapas Maharishi, who is believed to be living there as a frog in the waters of Vaigai. So Alagar's visit to Madurai is for Sudapas Maharishi in fact, and this has got nothing to do with Meenakshi's Thirukalyanam whatsoever. So both these devasthanams have their own calendars, have their own way of framing the schedule, have their own administrative setup to manage the festivals. The only thing that bridges both is both of them mutually exchange the invitations for the festival. That's the only time when they both cross, and that's it. Nothing else becomes common for Meenakshi's temple and her festival, and Alagar temple and his festival. So this grand 8-day-long festival. 8 days the journey, but it is preceded by another 3-4 days. So it starts on the new moon day of Chittirai month, when the local public, who I would say are ardent fans of Alagar, they cross all the limits of being devotees. They are just fanboys of Alagar is what I would say. Their love and commitment for Alagar is immeasurable. No seasoned devotees can even come close to the way they have struck the relationship with Alagar. It is extremely personal, very, very emotional for them. The moment they see, they will be actually traveling with Alagar for 2 days, the time that he takes to enter Madurai, but it will be like as if he is seeing them for the first time when he enters Madurai. There is this very important junction where a major section of Madurai's population will be waiting to literally welcome him, with silk carpet to welcome him inside Madurai. From then on, every minute for the next 1 week is dedicated for him for thousands of people. And that morning when he leaves, after 1 week of staying with him in Madurai, the morning that he leaves, bids farewell to the people of Madurai, you can actually see hundreds of them crying their heart out. Literally crying their heart out. It's like those little kids at home who've been very happy with their grandparents on their visit, and when they leave, the kids cry, right? I mean, that is the amount of love that they have for Alagar. They're very sure he's going to be back the next year. They're very sure it's only half an hour's drive from Madurai to go and see him and say hi to him. But still, he is welcome to Madurai. He is one amongst them. He is there for them. That is very special an occasion, and they're going to miss it for the next 1 year. So this love and commitment, I'm not sure if we can see it in devotees, but this is just amazing. So these devotees take up a vow for the next 15 days, and the vratam that they take up is avoiding non-vegetarian food. And so that is marked by Male Potukarudhu solluvaanga. Like Sabarimalai and other temples, they go to Alagar Malai, take a bath in the sacred waters there in Nupura Gangai, that is the Sthala Tirtham, and they have this Tulasi Malai which they wear in front of Alagar and take up their vows, and from then on there are rituals that they follow too. So there are nothing much happening with respect to rituals in the temple for the first 3-4 days, just the preparatory works, when Alagar's journey to Madurai is marked by what is called as Mandagappadi. That I would say is yet another very interesting feature that which Thirumalai Nayakar has come up with. It is a way of ensuring or strengthening the coffers of the temple. So all the way from Alagar Malai to Madurai is like close to 20-21 kilometers. And inside Madurai for the next 4 days, I'm sure he travels hundreds of kilometers, and then another journey back. In this route, anybody willing to welcome Alagar inside their campus, their building, their property, they are most welcome to do it. There is, of course, a price tag to it. You apply, you get it approved, and off late, I don't think, today they have close to 450 stops. Each of the stop is called a Mandagappadi, and they are not encouraging any more new Mandagappadi. And these Mandagappadis are dating back to 1700s or 1600s sometime. From the time of Thirumalai Nayakar, close to 20 generations they have been doing it. They have hosted stone mandapams. You can actually see them when you take this highway between Madurai to Alagar Kovil. On either side, you will see stone mandapams which are always kept in lock and key. Those become active only for those 15 minutes of Alagar's stay once a year. It is for those 15 minutes, priceless moments for them, Alagar visits their place. And today it is, the Mandagappadi is just amazing, the concept is, because almost all government bodies, all government agencies host Alagar. You will obviously have an employees union in any government office. So it is a part and parcel of the employees union to host Alagar. So Alagar goes back and forth to enter all these places, and private residences, industries, workshops, production units, anywhere. Yeah, and some of them are very, very traditional, including the Sethu Samasthanam of the Sethupathi kings. And all those erstwhile princely states in and around Madurai, they all have a connect with Thirumalai Nayaka. And Thirumalai Nayaka has a sign of honor given them the privilege of having a mandapam in their name, which Alagar visits. So this is the tradition. So starting from Alagar Malai, the first one being just outside the temple, all the way up to Vaigai and to many houses, and then coming back. And the tradition is, it is not a one-way visit. When he's coming back, he'll have to enter all these stops again. So as he goes and comes back, so people get to welcome him and host him for those 10-15 minutes twice in his journey. So this Mandagappadi is something that they document, and the work starts from around January, February. Had a talk with the AC there. So it is a tedious process. Every year you will have enough inquiries. You will have local politics playing its own role, ego issues, arrogance. So in one Mandagappadi, how many of them are given the prasadam? And there are legal battles fought for it for generations together to get it established. So that one garland from Alagar is something for which they don't mind fighting for like 10-20 years at a legal level. So the EO, the ACs, they all become extremely busy starting from January, February for this festival. So those preparatory works happen, and each of the clear space that they need, the roof clearance that Alagar needs as he walks inside the mandapam and comes out. So the Madurai Corporation comes in, all the other agencies associated with it, governmental agencies, they are all in place for it. So several meetings are held with the city corporation and the district collectors and all the who's who of the bureaucracy. They all get together to sort it out and come up with an SOP for this festival. So all of this happens, and in each stopping, Alagar has a special alankaram that he performs. So the jewels exclusively for those alankarams will be packed, sealed in wooden boxes, and that will reach those places. And in some specific mandapams, he chooses to come in a specific vahanam. You have the Sesha Vahanam coming in between, you have the Garuda Vahanam coming in. So all these Vahanams are also sent to those respective places. All of this happens in the first 4-5 days. The next 3-4 days, you have a procession inside the temple. A very simple procession inside the temple for the first 2 days. And on the third day, the procession happens early in the morning, because that will be the day when Alagar leaves. That evening, most probably, he will leave Alagar Malai. So early in the morning, the third day procession, the internal prakaram, the inner prakaram, the procession gets over, and the Moolavar, Utsavar and all the gods are fed for the next 6 days at a stretch. So the portions of food offerings for each day is cooked, is multiplied by 6, cooked and offered to the deity, because for the next 1 week, the food offerings from the temple kitchen is not going to happen. So it's all cooked in plenty and it is offered, and all the rituals, the Satumurai, the Veda Parayanam for those 6 days, everything gets over in that one session, that one service period that they have. And yeah. And on D-Day, you have Alagar getting ready for this annual trip of his to Madurai, his travel to Madurai. And he is accompanied by, as I told you, these are the most committed fanboys, I would say. Alagar's journey has specific vows which these people take. Dressing up like Kallalagar or Karuppar, the guardian deity of Alagar Malai, the appointed guardian for Alagar himself. Yeah, he's a traditional god of Tamil Nadu, especially in the southern districts, down south Kaveri. From Tiruchi, you see every village will have a temple for Karuppar. And as the name goes, he's dark-hued with a big mustache. He holds a sword. He rides a white horse. That's his regular feature. In fact, Alagar mimics this dressing of Karuppar when he comes to Madurai. Yeah, and so Karuppar is the guardian deity. Like him or as Alagar, they pray to Alagar. இது ஒன்று நடக்கணும், குழந்தைக்கு உடம்பு சரியில்லை, அது சரியாயிடுச்சுன்னா நான் வந்து அழகரா வேஷம் போட்டுட்டு வரேன். So dressing up like Alagar. In fact, these accessories, these costumes are all sold in Madurai Pudu Mandapam. Any time of the year you visit the Pudu Mandapam. Of course, it's just been vacated and they have shifted it over to a newly built market complex. Pudu Mandapam is just filled with shops exclusively for these accessories. The clothing, the fabric, the accessories that they have, the weapons that they hold. So it's all there. It's like a shop that rents out for fancy dress, you know. So you buy them and you wear them new every year. And for those next 5 days of his trip, they should be dressed like this and travel with him. So this is a very popular prayer or an offering made to Alagar by the common public. So they are all there dressed up like Alagar or Karuppar. That's what it takes to dress up like Karuppar. They hold a big torch, a black color trouser with embroidery patterns, applique work, very typical of the Nayaka period from Madurai. So the applique work is what is the typical Nayaka workmanship. And then they hold either a spear or a cane like this, or a sword, a dummy sword, and they hold a torch which is lit. And they tuck it under their arms and walk with that all the way up and down. They are the self-appointed guards for Alagar's journey, because he travels with his wealth, jewelry, silk and all that, silver vessels, all of it. So all the way from a town which is inside deep forest, cutting across more forested areas and aloof places. So they are the self-appointed guardians to Alagar all through his journey to Madurai and back. That's the palanquin. So predominantly in the next 1 week, he travels in his pallakku. It's a gold-plated palanquin. And on the day of leaving Alagar Kovil, this palanquin is all ready and it awaits Alagar's coming to there. And so it's all on the pallakku. And when he leaves Alagar Kovil, he dresses up as a kallar. We all know officially the name today by government records, it's called as Kallalagar Tirukkoyil. So the Devasthanam is called as Kallalagar Devasthanam. The Kallar community, a very traditional community, references about whom are seen from the Sangam period. Predominantly, they have been dacoits, and this part of Madurai, 20 kilometers away from Madurai, is its ancient highway connecting the east coast to the west coast. Via today's Dindikkal, it enters today's Karnataka and goes all the way up to Mangalore. So this used to be a very, very active trade route, and that is exactly why this particular stretch is also discussed in Shilappadikaram as one-way access to Madurai itself. So you can enter Madurai through Alagar Kovil. So this used to, and of course we see many Tamil Brahmi inscriptions from Madurai all the way in and around Alagar Malai. Very, very many places of Tamil Brahmi inscriptions are situated there. We have several prehistoric rock art sites in and around. In fact, there is one on the Alagar Hills, Alagar Malai Hills, hill ranges as such. You have a very happening rock art site. So this has been a site which has been habitated from pre-Sangam period. So you can be sure about it. And the street, the highway has been active too. So with the merchant guilds going up and down and the dacoits being a constant threat to the merchants and travelers, the government comes up with several plans during several phases of history, and the most important one being the Nayakar period. There are several stories and novels authored on the issues that the Nayaka kings of Madurai faced with the local community of dacoits being a threat to their rule. And at a point, In fact, I think that there again Thirumala Nayakar's brainchild comes in. So he strikes a balance and appoints the dacoits as guardians. So திருடன் கையிலே சாவியை கொடுத்துருப்பாங்கல்ல, கிட்டத்தட்ட அதுதான். So he strikes because anyways you're caught, you're going to be punished, that's always there. Get them employed and put them as, the safeguarders, and they'll know, they'll know how a dacoit will attack, they'll know where they will hide. It is easy to catch hold of them. So he appoints them to protect the temple and the fortified campus. Alagar Malai is actually a fortified campus. Innikku, the outermost entrance to Alagar Malai is called as Kottai Vasal. That's an important landmark. So it is actually built in the form of a kottai. You can see battlement parapet all around the circumference of the temple courtyard. So it should have been a place of protection too. If anything, it should have been more like a motel or a caravanserai for merchants who travelled up and down the same highway for thousands of years now. So Thirumala Nayakar engaged them, and for a community being looked down upon as dacoits, to get their own social identity, to get them into mainstream society, to give them that privilege, he engages them full time in the Alagar Malai ranges. And as a tradition, as a privilege, Kallar, or the name of the community, becomes a prefix to God himself. And from then on, he becomes Kallalagar. So on his journey to Madurai, he dresses up like the Kallar people. So that is when the special headgear, the turban that he ties, the Kandangi sari, which is also a Nayaka period introduction to Madurai, so that becomes the chosen fabric for Alagar to dress up. As a tradition, on any day, festive, non-festive, whenever Alagar takes a bath, he is always dressed up in a black fabric, black cotton fabric. Black dyed cotton fabric. So generally we don't prefer black for anything auspicious, anything associated with temple and rituals, but Alagar, given that's another sign of privilege for the Kallar community, because their activities are mostly in the night times, and for the hiding component they are always dressed in black. So Alagar chose that color from the shade card to get himself dressed in black. So whatever alankaram he has on him, even when he wears a coat of pearls, inside it's always the black fabric that gets to touch him, literally. So here again the black color plays a role, and the earthly shades of Kandangi, like maroon, mostly maroon is what is chosen. The small checked patterns of the Kandangi sari is used to drape Alagar in what is called as the Kallar Thirukkolam. And the ornaments that he wears in Kandangi sari, he ties his hair into a turban, and there he has what is called as Singamukha Thoda. I'll just show you all the jewelry, but just the names. Vandu Kadukkan, which is a really big ring-shaped earring that he wears. So that is what you see the colors again, the male members of the community wear. That's a big, nice ring around their ears, and they keep adding more weight to it with them aging. Every year they add more weight to it. You would have seen old women wearing it. The Tandatti in Madurai side, they wear it. So the male members wear what is called as Vandu Kadukkan, and a Odiyanam around his hip, and a Padakkam, Kaappu and Chalangai. That's his kaalukku potukkiradadalla. And then he carries weapons, a catapult, a spear, a boomerang, and a dagger. So all these are on him, all made out of gold. So dressed up in the form of a Kallar, very clearly like a dacoit, he leaves. And of course the Alvar calls him as a Kalvan too. Vanjak Kalvan, he says. So, I lost myself. Forget losing wealth and jewelry, I lost myself to him. So that is the kind of thief he is. That's how he gets dressed up. The Kandangi sari that's draped around, the spear he holds there, and a pair of boomerang held in his hands. So that's how he leaves. You can see the salangai that he is wearing. Thanks to the priests of the temple, I did manage to get some vintage photographs also. So this particular Thirukkolam of Alagar, holding the spear and the boomerang and the dagger, fixed to his hips. So that's never changed. This is the form that he should take. If you're going to change the jewelry, if you're going to change the kolam, you're inviting trouble. So that's how it is. It is all fixed. People know. And the schedule of Alagar is something that they have all known by heart. So, இன்னைக்கு மூணாவது நாளா இந்த இடத்துல இருப்பார், 11 மணி ஆச்சா இங்கே இருப்பார். And today I should tell you, they have apps for this. To chase Alagar, they have an app in place. I'm serious. So the auto guys, they're all there. Entire auto population of Madurai will be behind Meenakshi and Alagar during these 20-22 days. And for Alagar alone, they have this app. Because Meenakshi, she only travels around those 4 streets. So wherever you go, you can find her. But Alagar's journey is like, all over the northern banks of Madurai. So there is an app with GPS, you can go and trace where he is. You can catch hold of him. Yeah, that's a close-up. This is what is called as the Singamuga Todai. This turban this is like 3 petals of Thalampu, all made of gold. And there is one Simhamukam, like the Kirti Mukam, an architectural feature that you see in temple, the Yali face. So the Simhamukam is there, and with a pearl hanging from it, that's what he wears. The Thiruman Kapu, which is all again stone embedded, and the rings that you see here is the Vandu Kadukkan. The Kandangi sari is visible. The Kanda Perunda Padakkam, that's a very popular design invented mostly during the Hoysala period in architecture and sculptures, but that comes into the jewelry of both the Vijayanagara kings and the Nayak period jewelry. So with 2 birds getting into one neck and with 2 heads. So that's a mythical creature, a Kanda Perunda Pakshi. So that Padakkam or the pendant is very popular. And you can see the Tanga boomerang also, the Valari. So that's how he leaves Madurai. This is probably 1/10 of the population that follows him. You will have to cross over several boundaries of policemen, several circles to get anywhere close to him. But once into Madurai, once he enters Mandagappadi, it's more like a protocol that the entire police population retrieves. So it's for the people, by the people, with the people. That's how Alagar is. So security and all that takes. Thank you. So, when he is sent off to Madurai, you have the Jameen called Velliyam Kundram Jameen. Velliyam Kundram is a small settlement on the just next to Alagar Malai. So, they have a copper plate, the content of which I got to read, which talks about Vishwanatha Nayaka giving them all these privileges to keep a check on the dacoits in that region, against which they get the privilege of taking care of Alagar, his jewelry, gold, silver, everything. And they play a major role in taking charge of the festival, going along with Alagar. Yeah, it's a protocol today. So they are there. Apart from the bureaucrats who represent Madurai Corporation and all, with the police people, the Jameen is also there. In fact, Alagar will have to wait till such times the Jameen comes, and only when he says it's okay to leave, the palanquin starts. So they are at the service too. And Karuppar, I was telling you about the guardian deity, who is the patron god for the dacoits community. He is also housed in the temple. Yet another privilege for them. So as a tradition, before venturing into that night's dacoitry, they will make offerings to Karuppar. And when they have a successful hunt, when they come back, whatever they have managed to steal, it will all be spread in front of Karuppar, and with him as witness, it will be shared. So without him, nothing else will happen. So in front of him. So Karuppar is the patron god for the dacoits. He also finds a very important position inside the temple campus. So much so that any direction you enter Alagar Malai from, you will have to pray to Karuppar, and only then you can get into the main temple campus. Not just us. Alagar himself, when he leaves Alagar Malai to Madurai, stands in front of Karuppar and orders the temple administrator to read the list of jewelry and gold vessels that he is taking along with him to Madurai. And on return, as it is, he will have to give a receipt. So the acknowledgement will be signed by him, and the entire list of jewelry, and the list is very elaborate. It says like 32 muttum 16 manikamum vaithu kattina inda padakkam inda kondai. So with the number of gemstones, precious stones in it, it's a very detailed descriptive list of jewelry that he takes with him. So அதை வந்து கருப்பர் முன்னாடி பண்ணிட்டு போவார். Karuppar, as the name goes, he hasn't got an iconic representation. There's no iconographic representation for him. Though he is represented as a man with a big moustache and holding a sword, the traditional Karuppar representation is very, very symbolic. Even one spear planted somewhere, and if you invoke Karuppar in it, it means he is there already. Karuppar is like the air. There is no form to him. You can only sense him. So here in Alagar Malai, the Karuppar's presence is felt at the main entrance door, which is kept locked always. You cannot use the main entrance, Gopuram's entrance door at Alagar Malai. There will be a small wicket gate just next to it. You will have to walk in and walk out through that gate only. This door is where it is believed Alagar's guardian, who is Karuppar, stays. So that's the shrine. You can see there, that door there. It's painted with sandalwood. In fact, that's the ritual that you do. You pay and buy a small vessel full of sandal paste, and you can apply it yourself there. So that's the ritual that happens. And that gentleman is the Jamindar. And every year, this flag, before the GPS and the app came, this flag, which is held high just next to Alagar, tells us as to where Alagar is. So in that sea of people, in the crowd, to spot the direction in which he is, and because everywhere it will be all festive mood. So to point to the direction where Alagar stands, this flag with the emblem of Hanuman, again an applique work embroidered on it, is what is held high for people to see. So Velliyankundram Jameen, he conducts a sadas there. He comes, he sits, he waits till such time Alagar is ready on his palanquin. The temple people come, invite him, and then he goes along with his family members. As you can see, the bureaucrats are all there. So it's something where the government completely involves itself. So the first Maryadai and all that, the honors, respect is all given to the Velliyankundram Jameen. And once he says it's all set and they can leave, Alagar leaves. And along with him, you have the temple undi that goes. It's actually pulled in a small hand-pulled cart. Today it is all mechanized, of course. You see these big size steel drums, which is all numbered with Thiruman Kappu and all that. So Alagar's economy definitely doubles up once he gets back from his trip. So there is a day marked with government issued circular for public participation to break these undis and count and put it in the coffers. So that is also a part of it. So this has been a tradition since the king's time. So whatever minimum offerings, because like Tirupati undi, Alagarukku they'll have an undi. For that year's offerings will all be taken and offered in Alagar's undi during that year's procession to Madurai. So yeah, they are the ones who are dressed up as Alagar and Karuppar, and that is their attire for the next 1 week. And you have people who hold large size fans to just fan people up. And you have these Sambrani Dupam, which is made in a small brass cup, which is also held with an wooden cane, and that is offered to Perumal and the people too. So these are all rituals that are done by people who are just self-appointed. Nobody organizes it. You just see them all over the place. Two important economic activities, more like an MSME that flourishes with Alagar's visit to Madurai is Uruma Kattudal, a bamboo cane that is used to make these kind of caps. The caps that they make. This is a very, very happening market starting from around March. Even during Meenakshi's festival, the outer roads, the exterior roads, the roads around Meenakshi temple, you'll see people with small unorganized markets where people sit and they're busy making these urumas, as they call. Now these urumas are the headgear for people who dress up as Alagar. So they wear it on their head and cover it with silk cloth. So that becomes the creedam, as one peacock feather kept on it, and more decoration as you wish, whatever you can afford. You have a wide range of accessories to fit on it, to choose from, and all of that is done. So this is the uruma that they make, a very happening market in fact. The other is of course treated goat hide, goat skin, to make those water bags. As a tradition, the moment Alagar enters Vaigai, from then on, all through the important landmark events in the festival, people engage in filling these water bags with water from Vaigai, have a small nozzle fixed to it. Now that's a very ornamental nozzle with a yardy face and all. This nozzle is fixed on one side, it's worn like a handbag, and they splash water on the god himself. So this is something that generally we cannot do in other temples. I mean, anything that is to be offered to the god goes to him through the priest. But here, as he enters Vaigai, you see millions of these water splashing happening, millions of people engaged, thousands of people engaged in collecting the water from Vaigai, and they'll have to use it to splash on the god through that little nozzle. So this is another very happening market. There is a village called Karyapatti, the outskirts of Madurai, which is very popular for it. So all the goats raised, they are reared, and the skin is brought, it's seasoned, and then they make bags out of it. As a tradition, this has been done by several families over generations. When I interacted, they said like, they have their random numbers, but it only means that they've been doing it for generations over. So every year during this festival, they are there to buy these bags. It has got to be bought new every year. And once the festival gets over and Alagar leaves, these bags are to be buried in the riverbed of Vaigai. You cannot carry them home or take nothing like that. You'll have to bury it there and forget it for, that's it. So you buy it new every year. And some of them have those nozzles which are parted with over generation. They hair it actually. So that is that specific nozzle that they use to splash water. And in the recent years, there were problems with people using water pump to pump water on Alagar and all, and legal battles, of course. So a lot of complications have happened. But this is a tradition, probably given the summer heat and with so many people getting into it, this is the easiest way to bring in some amount of cool air there. Yeah, start of the festival. So with the we know that any festival in temples start with the flag hoisting. So at Alagar Malai, this happens, the temple rituals, it's a part of the temple ritual where the priests in the appointed hour, the auspicious hour, they conduct the rituals and hoist the flag. This is replicated in all the 450 odd Mandagapadis also on the same day. So each of the mandapam will have a pandal that is erected. So the pandal kal, or to plant those bamboo canes to get the canopy done, that is done on the same auspicious hour chosen by the temple to when they prepare their own pandal. So each of the Mandagapadi also works on the pandal making. That's how old Mandagapadis look. These are the mandapams. A typical 17th century stone mandapam, 17th, 18th century stone mandapam, which serves the purpose only for those 15 minutes once a year when Alagar comes in. So each of it will be labeled, and the series cannot be changed, the order cannot be changed, the time period that he's in there cannot be changed. So just 10-15 minutes before Alagar enters, you will have a host of temple administration, people, police, everybody coming in and making way for Alagar. Everybody will be pushed around, the space will all be cleared, and Alagar will just come in, and you will have to keep the palanquin down there. So that's what it is. Anga vechittu or 5 nimisham irukum. Before Alagar comes in, the man with the ledger book will be there. He'll have to identify who are the sponsors, the donors. Only 2 of them or 3 of them, whatever is the amount paid, as against it, he will have to have the head count. They should be standing in the front, and they'll be given the garland and Perumal Prasadam, and you'll have somebody to blow the whistle, and Perumal will leave. It's for those 15 minutes that people wait all around the year. So Alagar Malaiyilendi, he leaves mostly in the evening times, because mostly his journey will be during the evening and night times. So around 3 or 4 in the evening, with the auspicious hour chosen, he will leave. He comes out of the shrine and reaches Karuppar's Sannidhi. As I told you, the entire list of jewelry and all the wealth that is traveling with him will be read out in front of Karuppar, and with Karuppar granting him permission, he will leave Alagar Malai, and as he travels, you will have the administration going with him. You will have his own devotees dressed up like him walking with him. You will have the Vaishnavites who chant Divya Prabandham as he goes. They also travel with him in a tempo. They keep reading the Prabandhams and the Pasurams associated. So it's like a long procession that happens. And the first night, the night first after leaving Alagar Malai, he stays at a place called Appan Thiruppati, which is very close to Alagar Malai, in fact, a couple of kilometers, but it takes close to 4 hours for him to leave Alagar Malai campus and reach this place. Appan Thiruppati has been a village endowed to Alagar Perumal from around the 13th century. From Pandya period inscriptions, we see that the Appan Thiruppati and a tank there has been endowed to the temple, and the tank is still there. It is used for the float festival that happens in Masi. And interestingly, names of shop owners to whom the king had given the land to keep their shops and run their market, and what is it that they should be paying the temple for, using the temple land, is all discussed in the inscription. So that becomes the first stop, and every night wherever he rests, what is called as Pallakku Thirumanjanam happens. Thirumanjanam is the sacred bath, the ritual bath. Because Alagar is tied to the Pallakku, this Abhishekam happens with him standing right there in the Pallakku. So that's called Pallakku Thirumanjanam. Every evening he'll have to take his bath and only then get dressed up. This Alagar has this very special routine of taking bath only in the water of Nupura Gangai. Nupura Gangai is the sacred water body associated with the temple. So every day, really tall pitchers of water will be driven along with him. So 22 pitchers of water sealed will be carried along with him, and the Abhishekam can happen only in the water of Nupura Gangai. So Pallakku Thirumanjanam happens. And the next day, early in the morning, he'll leave Appan Tirupati, and to cover those 20 kilometers, he'll take close to 6 or 7 hours. So slowly, Mandagapadi after Mandagapadi, one after the other, people's offering, collecting it all, dance, music, with all of this, he enters Madurai in a place called Moondru Mavadi. This becomes the local news for the day. Alagar Moondru Mavadi Vandu Serndar is the flash news for the day. So that's the junction where Alagar Malai highway meets Madurai town outskirts. So that prominent junction where Alagar comes, you have the people of Madurai waiting for him, giving him that grand reception that he should be given. With silk on the streets, laid on the streets, Alagar walks on it in his palanquin. The emotions are extremely high and charged, and the moment he enters in, I think all social media handles will only have hashtag Madurai, hashtag Alagar, hashtag Chitrai Festival as the most happening hashtags there. So Mandagapadi of all kinds happens in Madurai. As I told you, every government agency, it's more like an internal competition. Every single government agency will have Alagar hosted in their campus that day, and the entire city will be reverberating with that one blockbuster song from some movie produced by Kalaichelvan by Vijaykanth, and Vararu Vararu Alagar Vararu. I don't know, millions of speakers will be playing the same song. Every Mandagapadi it will be the same song. Nothing like that song. They have one for Alagar and one like that for Meenakshi, sung by Malaysia Vasudevan sir, if I'm right. Pallakku Kudireile Bhavani Varum Meenakshi. In the rendu paattu da for the next 22 days in Madurai, ever since Meenakshi's festival. And today with the reels and all these things coming up, I mean all the social media handles with many friends in Madurai, every reel that I pass through will, every second or third reel will be Vararu Vararu Alagar Vararu. So that's how it is. They welcome him with that song. That becomes the national anthem for Madurai for those the time that he is. So you see the people of Madurai as they welcome him, and an iconic entry wherever it is an important junction, the palanquin bearers lift him literally. The entire weight of the palanquin with the Swami, the priest, all of it is just lifted together to show. And that is one, again, a very charged, emotionally charged moment. And as he enters, and in each Mandagapadi, of course, you will have some kind of special things that are handed over to him. Like, for example, the Ambalakkarar Mandagapadi, that's another ancient traditional community. So they are into warfare and war tactics. So there used to be a tradition of them presenting traditional Silambatam and all that in front of Alagar. As he is seated in the Mandagapadi, the Kamba Suttradhu, idallathiyum avar munadi panni kaatuvaanga. Now with a ban in conducting those competitions, they have switched over to firecrackers. So over 20-25 minutes firecracker display will happen, and in fact that has a special crowd that watches it. So for the next 20-25 minutes the sky gets lit with all possible colors. So Alagar accepts all that, and finally that is the junction. As he enters, you can see the people there. This, I say, is probably 1/10 or 1/20 of the crowd that's behind him. So that's a vintage photo of how he comes in. And this is the most sought after offering for Alagar. So every household in Madurai will have this to be offered to him. It's one traditional chombu, velli chombu or a pittala chombu, which is filled with natu chakrai, the jaggery. Ada podu fill pannittu on top of it they seal the mouth of the sombu with a small plantain leaf and tie a mulam of flower around it, and namam is applied, and on the plantain leaf they keep a camphor, light it, and that is what is offered to him. So on the karpooram erinju mudicha odane that is the jaggery inside is distributed. So every household will have this. They'll come, present this, offer this. Wherever you are in the world, people travel to be a part of Madurai only for this moment, to welcome him with this one offering. So this is the most common offering that everybody does there. And that evening, second day evening, as he finishes all the Mandagapadis, mostly the outskirts is where, a little before Talakulam is where you have all the government bodies, including the High Court. All of them have Mandagapadi. I mean, I'm not sure how this is accepted by all kinds of people, but it has been that way. So, I mean, all secular spaces invite him. There is no barricade of any sort at all. People from various different religious background, faith systems, all of them are there to be a part of it. They just get soaked in it, and their connect with Alagar is unimaginable. And that evening he reaches a place called Tallakulam, the outskirts of Madurai again, a little before the city on the northern banks of Vaigai. And there you have a Tirumala Nayaka period temple dedicated to Srinivasa of Tirupati, called as Prasanna Venkatachalapati temple, which follows the same ritual traditions, the same agama. So as Alagar enters Tallakulam, that is when people really get charged, because next day early morning is the most awaited moment. So at Tallakulam Perumal temple he stays for that night, and the horse is treated with special rituals. It's offered garlands and decorations, and all that is done. The horse will be parked in the temple the night before, and Alagar, after an elaborate Thirumanjanam, gets ready for the most important day. So that's how the horse is dressed, and that's Alagar before entering the Vaigai river. As you can see, as a tradition, all the years, year after year, it is only a white muslin cloth that is used to drape him. So mallu thunimbaanga romba light ah irukakudiyadu, that is what is used to drape Alagar when he enters Vaigai. Generally you would have heard pachai pattuduthi Alagar iranginar, and the color of the silk that is chosen, right, that is only to dress his cushion on which he sits. So he, as a tradition, every year, year after year, it is only white that is the chosen color for Alagar, and with that you can notice without any garland he starts. So from Tallakulam Perumal Kovil, he leaves without any garland, and he in fact waits. He does not leave. He waits there without the garland to the most precious garland for which he has been waiting, that which has been worn by Sudi Kodutta Chudarkodi or Andal. So Andal's love for Alagar is, it can only be understood by her pasurams, if any. So she is the one who wished she could offer 100 pots of akkara vadisal and butter to Alagar Perumal, which was realized later by Ramanujacharya. So Andal's connect with Alagar is quite strong. In fact, in all her verses, she only refers to or dedicates a set of 10 songs to 3 shrines. One is Thiruvengadam, Tirumala, other is Srirangam, and the third one is Alagar. Only these 3 Perumals, she has attempted composing a set of 10 songs exclusively for them. And the songs on Alagar Malai is probably she was there during some kind of some monsoon season, because her song captures all those beautiful, rich scenes from the monsoon showers. So she, as a tradition, sends her gift to Alagar. And what better than a garland that she has worn, which carries her scent, her love, her dedication, and all of that for Alagar Perumal, along with her parrots, a jadai made stitched with flowers, a sari that she has worn, the Thirumanjanam powder with which she has actually taken bath, the sandalwood paste that has dressed her bosoms. So all of it is brought from Srivilliputtooru officially by the temple priests administrators, and that is brought here to Alagar Malai. That is Alagar and this is Andal. Just see how the Utsava Vigraham's faces matches so well. I always had this thought that they both seem like strikingly similar, the facial features are. So I asked one of my digital artist friend to crop and try and see if they match, and yeah, they did match in fact. That's Alagar and Andal. They are quite literally made for each other. And that's Andal at Srivilliputtooru. So she wears this specially ordered garland. The color combination is specific to each place. Madurai Udaya Malai is different from Thiruvannamalai, is different from Tirunelveli, is different from Srivilliputtooru. People who are used to it can differentiate between a Srirangam Malai and a Srivilliputtooru Malai. So, I mean, a very interesting cultural component this is, which is again dying fast because people are all switching over to large scale, a very comical malais that they prefer. Anything big is what is accepted today, unfortunately. So inge vandu each of the malai, the flowers are all regional, and the combinations, the thickness of each layer, all that is all set. In traditional temples, you cannot afford to change them. அதே மாதிரி தான் சைவ ட்ரெடிஷன்லையும் சிதம்பரம் மாலையிலேருந்து திருவாரூர் மாலை 60 kilometers தான் difference, but the malai will have its own language that it speaks. So Andal's malai and her kili and all that is gifted. So from Srivilliputtooru, it is brought to Madurai by the temple priests. It is housed at Kudalalagar temple, which is the Vishnu temple inside Madurai city. It's kept there for like 2 days, and on the day it is brought to Tallakulam Perumal Koil, where you can see him wear Andal's malai. That's the picture from this year. So he wears Andal's malai before entering. Similarly, she also sends the same gifts all the way to Tirumala, and on the 5th day of Puratasi Brahmotsavam, when Tirupati Perumal dresses him up as Nachiyar and comes out in the Pallakku, the garland sent by Andal is what is worn by him. Srirangathukku she sends, but as it is Rangam, Srirangam, they only show it in front of Namberumal and take it. There is no tradition of exchange of garlands with anybody for Ranganatha, but Tirupati Perumal and Alagar enjoy the companionship of Andal, so they wear it very proudly as they enter this special occasion. And then this is a unique tradition again started by Thirumalai Nayakar called as Ayiram Pon Chapparam. Officially, newspaperலாம் பார்த்தீங்கன்னா பச்சை பட்டுடுத்தி 1000 பொன் சப்பரத்தில் குதிரை வாகனத்தில் வைகையில் அழகர் இறங்கினார்னு சொல்லுவாங்க. This 1000 பொன் சப்பரம் is it's not in a tradition, it's more a tradition today, it's not put to actual purpose. This was a chariot shaped massive structure, a kind of a chariot that was designed, patronized by Thirumalai Nayakar, because inside Madurai, Meenakshi had a chariot for herself. Thiruppudaimarudur Murugan was gifted with a chariot by Thirumalai Nayakar. Alagar's chariot was only happening at Alagar Malai. So Thirumalai Nayakar wanted to host Alagar in what looks like a chariot. But the temple traditions are that he should ride a horse as he enters Vaigai. So Thirumalai Nayakar came up with this idea to get the horse and Alagar both parked inside the chariot and pulling the chariot. So he came up with this chariot that's built new. Till date at Madurai, we have this place called Chapparathadi, or the place where the chapparam is parked. A chapparam is a pedestal on wheels that can be pulled around. So the Chapparathadi is still there in Madurai, Namkevas. The chapparam is brought from Alagar Malai every year. This was also a practice that was discouraged and discontinued in the last 50-60 years. Thanks to the TN government, HRNC, they managed to retrieve it in the last 2-3 years, and this is on the streets. So Chapparathadi is a very important landmark in Tallakulam, and this chapparam has a Karuppar who is appointed to take care of it. So he is the guardian deity. So இன்னிக்கும் அந்த கோயிலுக்கு போனீங்கன்னா தல்லாக்குளம்ல இருக்கு. The name board outside reads Chapparathadi Karuppar. That's the Karuppar for the Chapparam. So you can see that மேலே போட்டிருப்பான் சப்பரத்தடி முத்தையா கருப்பண்ண சுவாமி. So this is where the chapparam is parked. So after wearing Andal's garland, Alagar goes to this temple, blesses the Chapparathadi Karuppar, who is taking charge of his chapparam for that 1 year, who is stood guardian to it. And after blessing him in the early hours of the full moon day, he enters the Ayirampon chapparam. So today the Ayirampon chapparam only accompanies him for like 100 meters and then it is removed because it becomes increasingly challenging to to sync the procession of the horse and the chapparam amidst like thousands of people there. So for security reasons, it's more a tradition. Alagar travels in the Ayirampon chapparam for like 100 meters and then it is removed from the procession way. That's the picture from this year. So the chapparam is designed new. The pedestal with the wheels alone is fixed. The canopy and all that is made new every year. It has the label on it, Ayirampon chapparam. But we have some photos from the bygone era. That's Alagar on the horse, you can see. With the chapparam, which is like, 3-4 stories tall, which is pulled along with him. So he on the horse is sheltered inside the chapparam and they are pulled together. And in fact, they enter Vaigai with the chapparam. To drive a chapparam in moving water, I don't know what is the kind of control system they had. This is Vaigai river. That's the chapparam there. The Ayirampon chapparam that's pulled literally in the water. And so Vaigai Attil Irangudal, this is the moment. So after getting out of the chapparam for like after 100 meters, he drives his horse and en route to Vaigai, in the 200 meters, he has enough mandagapadis to attend. That's the most charged moment, I would say, between 3 to 5, because the muhurtam they are very particular about. In the year Kuda, it was between 5 to 5:17 early in the morning. I don't know, the 17 minutes was the chosen time for him to enter. You have astrologers who fix it, and I mean, it is attended by almost all the prominent, you have the ministers, you have the secretaries, the under secretaries, the joint commissioners from various branches, various departments, they're all there. Yeah, so with all of this, the AC of the temple, and I mean, I don't know what is making them do this year after year, but still they are so committed to it. And in those 15 minutes, he'll have to enter Vaigai, but he'll have like 3 mandagapadis to finish before. And you cannot compromise on any mandagapadi. You can certainly not compromise on the mandagapadis. And to control people who are so excited, to have various levels to stop them, I think there is no one control point. Alagar controls it all. That's how it goes. So finally, after finishing those 3-4 mandagapadis, the penultimate mandagapadi is by the government of Tamil Nadu. So the HRNCE, the Hindu Religious and Charitable Endowments, an agency under the TN government, has their own sponsored mandagapadi, wherein you have either sometimes the minister himself participates, or you have the other representatives from the government department who make the offerings and take the honors. With Alagar on his gold-laid horse, you'll also have a small Perumal who accompanies him, who follows him on a silver-plated horse. He is Veeraraghava Perumal from East Masi Veedi at Madurai, a temple which has not many takers, not many people visit it. It's quite insignificant tucked in the population of Madurai, but this Perumal has the privilege to enter Vaigai along with Alagar. The tradition goes that many years before, almost 2 centuries back, on this day when Alagar was supposed to enter Vaigai, one of the pandals caught fire, and with people, scattering around and running to save themselves, one of the priests of Madurai managed to pull the Vigraham of Alagar along with him and jumped and protected him from fire. So in order to honor him, the administrators then promised some kind of an annual recognition for him. That's when he said, I don't want any recognition. I'm the priest of this Veeraraghava Perumal at Madurai on the East Masi Veedi, with so much of fan following for Alagar and nobody coming to our temple. I'd be greatly honored if you permit my Perumal also to enter Vaigai every year when Alagar comes here. So that as a custom till date. So Veeraraghava Perumal from East Masi Street. So he accompanies Varadar. So that's a Velli Kudire you can see. So he's the only one privileged to enter Vaigai river along with Varadar. So the temple priests accompany him till date, and in any relay you can see rendu Perumal irupanga. The other one is Masi Veedi Veeraraghava Perumal. That's what looks like a small swimming pool there, a shallow pool. That is what is the Vaigai river, officially declared as Vaigai for Alagar to make his journey. Obviously, I think this is the best way to handle it. because the crowd is uncontrollable and people try all kinds of gimmicks to get close to him. They high jump over barricades, compounds, whatnot. And so all the departments involved in the security aspect, the fire safety, electricity, all of them, they all have a tough time handling it. So, and this is peak summer, so you don't expect a bountiful flow in the Vaigai. So to have Vaigai, water in Vaigai is a privilege by itself. So they managed to get this one sluice opened the day before the occasion, and the small pit like that is formed. So the tradition is that Alagar's Kudirai should enter water, that's it. So whatever is required for it, they have it done with 2-3 layers of barricaded security, and just in time, Alagar enters Vaigai river, and the moment that it is, you have people who start splashing water on him, and as I told you, that's the government Mandagapadi. The HRNC is Mandagapadi, and so there you see it actually reads there, Indu Samaya Aranalaithurai Mandagapadi. So it's an official Mandagapadi by a government agency. So people are there, and for the next 2 hours, nobody bothers about anything around. It is all for Alagar for the next couple of hours at least. And all their, the deep love that they've been having for Alagar, for that moment that they've been savoring over the entire year, all just pours out. Some cry, some shout out, some jump. And whatever they are capable of to exhibit their love and commitment, and that the high energy that comes out for a moment is immense actually. I don't know, words fail to describe it. One will have to participate in it to understand it. And off late with cameras and videos, so Alagar becomes the most sought after subject for all photograph enthusiasts in Madurai. So splashing of the Vaigai river water, as I told you. And that afternoon, dripping in water, he enters more Mandagapadis and reaches what is called as Ramarayar Mandapam. Ramarayar is one of the close allies of Thirumalai Nayakar, a minister in whose name, in whose honor, a mandapam has been built on the banks of Vaigai, where the Tirthavari for this festival happens. So after having dipped in the waters of Vaigai, Alagar is taken to Ramarayar Mandapam that afternoon, and it's Mandagapadi after Mandagapadi, that's it. It's only that gets repeated for the next 4-5 days. More photos on water being splashed. The temple priest has a very tough time, in fact. And that is a hereditary honor that they get. So there are a few interviews of him on YouTube you can watch, where he says, whatever challenge it is, I will have to stay with him. And that is not for these couple of hours. 36 hours, 36 to 40 hours, he is with Alagar. Throughout those 2 days fully in Madurai, it is this family of priests who get to accompany him. And so he stands there holding on to Alagar with like hundreds of people carrying him into small streets, where not. So he passes through narrow lanes, he passes through, he just jumps over ditches. It's quite an adventure to travel with Alagar. And the second half of the day, with love and water dripping all over him, he enters Vandiyur, which is again on the northern banks of Madurai. So it is called as Vada Madurai. There's a Krishna temple, and that's representative of Mathura from north. So Vada Madurai, Veeraragava Perumal temple. That afternoon, you can see in like 6 hours, that's how the garland has turned. And his white cloth has turned yellow with all the water splashing and whatnot. So he enters Veeraragava Perumal temple, and the Madurai people have this fond for banners. Yeah, they come up with really poetic verses, photographs, animation, GIF images, whatnot on banners. The banner culture is very, very popular in Madurai. Flex adikirdu in the local terms. So anything happens, whatever it is, a flex is a mandate. Yeah, they don't mind. Whatever it is, a flex is what is there as an indicator to evaluate your social status. So they call him as Pandiyanattu Alagane, Varuga Varuga, Per Alagane, Varuga. So, all traditions take a back seat. Probably Thiruvallikeni Parthasarathi being welcomed by this kind of a phrase might not be accepted by the temple administration. I don't know, I'm just taking a random guess. But when it comes to Alagar, he's theirs. So whatever they think is the best to address him, they address him with that. And there at Ramarayar Mandapam, the 4th, he stays that night, and early in the morning, the 4th day, the day after the full moon day of Chitra Paurnami day, is when the Manduka Maharishi's Saba Vimochanam happens. That's the core event for the festival, in fact. So that morning, after having traveled in the horse for like close to 20 hours, and getting all the water on him and the heat of May sun, so there is what is called as Chaitropacharam that he is given. So the Murti is bathed in milk and curd and sandalwood paste and saffron powder, and the choicest of flowers are used to garland him, and Chaitropacharam happens that morning. So that's very tastefully done, in fact. Very, very tastefully done. It's a sight to see the temple priest massaging him, his shoulders and back and hips and all that. He literally massages, accompanied by Nadaswaram music, very close to Perumal. He has his own time to relax and then has this very elaborate bath and gets dressed up and ready for the next day, which is Manduka Maharishi's Moksham. So he travels in a Seshavahanam. As I told you, this Seshavahanam will be transferred to Veeraragha Vandiyur temple the day before, and Alagar dressed up on the Seshavahanam. This is the fourth day. He leaves Vandiyur and goes to what is called as Thenur Mandapam, where the most important event for the entire journey of Alagar happens. Thenur Mandapam is an iconic landmark. Whenever you cross Vaigai, the popular Vaigai bridge through which you enter Madurai, you can see it literally on the riverbed, literally in the middle. It's in fact called as Mayya Mandapam. அது அந்த ஆற்று நடுவிலேயே அப்படியே இருக்கும், அது அந்த ரிவர் சாண்ட்லேயே கட்டியிருப்பாங்க. ஸோ தேனூர் மண்டபம், அகேன் ஃப்ரம் த நாயக்கா பீரியட், கெட்ஸ் இட்ஸ் ஓன் identity on that day. You can see it's a landmark. The highway board reads Thenur Mandapam. So Alagar reaches Thenur Mandapam in his Seshavahanam, and that's how the Vahanams are transported. You see, that's the Garuda Vahanam. You can see one hand of Garuda coming out and his wings out there. So it's bull-carted to the respective venues. So the Vahanams reach there before Alagar, and dressed up he mounts the Garuda Vahanam, and dressed up for the occasion, Alagar grants Moksham to Manduka Maharishi. That's the Thenur Mandapam, as you can see. That's a vintage photo. This is from last year, of course. And a small pond is created there for the frog to jump in and all that. So it's Aidihya Utsavam. So Aidihya Utsavams are very tastefully designed, both in Shaivite and Vaishnavite temples. I wish a good nice book is authored on it. So the Aidihyams which have caused God's presence there in that particular temple, in that particular shrine, is remembered, recalled every year, and it is actually enacted. You have characters coming in, you have accessories, and in some cases like in Madurai, you have even a conversation, a script in place which they talk out, they speak out, the dialogues are delivered, and it is recalled every year. A wooden image of Manduka Maharishi is kept on the banks of that makeshift little pool that they have made, and Alagar grants Moksham to him on the Garuda Vahanam. Garuda Vahanam is significant because that's the darshan that anybody who reaches Vaikuntham gets. So as a symbolic representation again, he comes on his Garuda Vahanam, and that's how the jewelry for each of the mandapam is again transferred. So all held in steel and wooden boxes, sealed, and it is transported from Alagar Malai. So there are set jewelry for each of the occasion, and all those are packed and sent along, and it's placed there. That night, after granting Moksham to Manduka Maharishi around noon time, he travels to Ramarayar Mandapam once again. An elaborate Thirumanjanam happens, and just in case to keep people awake through the night, all through the night, Alagar is dressed up in Dasavataram, in each of the avataram, one after the other. So just in case to keep people awake, because next day it is already 4 days, quite a tedious journey. The next day they'll have to start, and there is some schedule for the next day too. So that night, Alagar, dressed up as one of the avataram each, one after the other, he presents himself to his devotees. So that's it. It begins with Muttangi Sevai. Not that all 10 avatarams are dressed up as. So that's Muttangi Sevai, a long coat stitched with pearls. Next is Matsya Avataram. You can see the Makaram mean, the fish that's there. And then you have the Kurma Avataram. So Matsya Kurma, and I think you have Vamana Avataram. That's Vamana holding the umbrella and the Kamandalam. Then you have Rama Avataram with bow and arrow, and then Krishna Avataram with the flute. So these are the avatarams which he presents himself. So starting around midnight, close to early in the morning, 6 avatarams are, he's dressed up in these 6 avatarams, and once the sun rises, he comes out as Mohini, playing a veena, dressed up in white silk, the Mohana Avataram as it is called, and he has his hairdo and the jadai and all that. And with Mohini Avataram, he comes out to the Pandal outside the Mandapam, accompanied by Nadaswara music, of course, walks swiftly like Tayar, like Mohini. Yeah, for a moment he forgets that he is this hero of Madurai, and plays the role of Tayar and walks very swift and very a fashion walk that it is. He slowly walks up and down the Pandal, called as Patti Ulattal. This is again a comfort factor for him after having those tedious 4 days. And then the 5th day, the penultimate day, he's placed on what is called as Tantapallakku, a pallakku with ivory inlaid on it. This was also a gift by Ramarayar, not just to Alagar, to Meenakshi and Thiruppudaimarudur Murugan. All three of them, the three prominent temples of Madurai, all of them have been gifted by a Tanta Pallakku by Ramarayar. So he rides what is called as the Tanta Pallakku in Rajanga Alankaram. So an ivory laid palanquin, and he goes to the place where he entered Vaigai the day before. So that's called as Tadam Parthal. That's another tradition in temples. The day after the chariot festival, the deities are carried to take a check over the track all around and come back. So Tadam Parkardu, that is there in Kapali temple, in all the temples, the day after the chariot festival. So then he goes to Chapparattadi, because probably this is where the Chapparam will be parked. Till then, for the 2 days, I think he should have travelled in the Chapparam and park it back in its place on the penultimate day and bless Chapparattadi Karuppar, only to meet him the next year, the following year, and goes to Sethupathi Samasthana Mandapam. The Sethupathi kings were a very, very strong allies to Thirumalai Nayakar, because they were put in charge of Rameshwaram, and it was through Rameshwaram any attack from Sri Lanka was happening in those days. So in order to empower them and enable them, the Sethupathi Samasthanam, they always had a very close ties with the Nayaka kings. So as an honor to them, the last and final Mandagappadi inside Madurai has been granted to them. So the fifth night, because on the 6th day morning he's going to leave Madurai. So fifth night, the Sethupathi kings come, the Mandapam gets its due recognition that day, and you have the royal family members still participating in it, and an elaborate Abhishekam is done that night. And on the 6th day morning, early in the morning, the Sethupathi kings organize what is called as a Pushpa Pallakku, a palanquin fully decorated with flowers and flower garlands, and Alagar goes out of Madurai. He reaches to the outskirts of Madurai. He's carried in this palanquin, and then once he reaches the outskirts, the flower palanquin is shifted. He's shifted from there to his regular Tanga Pallakku, and once again he dresses up as Kallar. The same kandangi in place, the same spear, the dagger, the boomerang, the catapult, so all of that in place. Once again as Kallar, he dresses up, and around 8 or 9 in the morning, depending on the muhurtam, the auspicious hour, he bids a bit emotional farewell to the people of Madurai, who has lived with him for the past 5 days, every minute, every moment, travelled with him. It will be the same set of people who travel with him, in fact. Yeah, I mean, they don't get bored, they don't get tired. It is for him. So the 1 week of different age groups, people travel with him. So it's going to be very emotional for them to bid farewell, knowing well that he'll only be here only the next year. So you actually see people crying, quite literally crying. And as he leaves and as the scene disappears, they fall flat on the ground and pray to him, pray for their wellness, their family, the world, everything. So it's kind of, a very unorganized prayer session that happens, but it is deeply moving to see people, their commitment. I'm with dry eyes, I'm just standing there and சரி எப்போ முடிப்பாங்க இவங்கெல்லாம், எதுக்கு இவ்வளோ விழுறாங்கன்னு தான் நமக்கு இன்னும் அந்த மெச்சூரிட்டியில் தான் இருக்கும். For them, Alagar is in flesh and blood. He just comes, he talks to them, he is with them, he grants them what they want. Yeah, so they have their own personal fights with him, arguments with him. இந்த வருஷமும் இது நடக்கலாம், அடுத்த வருஷம் உன்னை பார்க்கவே மாட்டேன் kind of promises that they make, what not. It is very emotional, in fact. And then travels back to Appan Kovil, Appan Tirupati in his Tanga Pallakku, and reaches Alagar Malai. That's the Pushpa Pallakku that's sponsored by the Ramanathapuram Sethupathi kings. Again in the Tanga Pallakku, he reaches the outskirts. A little before entering Alagar Malai, probably in order to boost the morals of the palanquin bearers for like a week-long travel, day and night, they had the tradition of parking the palanquin in a particular place and organizing rooster fights. So, and in the ஆடு சண்டை இதெல்லாம் வந்து நடந்துட்டு இருந்திருக்கு. Now that it is legally banned, they don't do it anymore. Instead, it's more a tradition of just two roosters making to meet each other, and then they immediately dissolve it, and Alagar further continues. Rooster fights around Madurai are very popular. Yeah. So, and he waits in the just outside the Kottai Vasal before entering for the auspicious hour again. Muhurtam is all in place. So, the moment he enters, the people of Alagar Kovil, who are again the people of Madurai who travelled with him, see, after crying and bidding farewell, it does not mean they'll go back home. They will still continue with him. So it is just that this is our boundary and we are going to miss you in our place for the next 1 year. But we can always come along with you. So it's like they travel with him all the way to Alagar Malai, and they are there. And the local residents of Alagar Malai wait there with baskets of flower to shower on him and welcome him. That's another beautiful scene that you see there. That's how he's welcomed back into Alagar Malai. You have people sitting on top of the terrace and to shower flowers on him. And to ward off evil eyes, I mean, he's Alagar, right? Being on the streets for 1 week, meeting like millions of people, it's obviously going to cause a lot of evil eyes on him. So to ward it off, you have the women folk of Alagar Malai waiting there with Poochanikai, Drishti Sutti podradhukaga. And the men there replace the Poochanikai with coconut. Close to 1,000-2,000 coconuts are broken there, and the Poochanikais are all used, and it's all adhiyum pottu odachu Alagara vandu welcome பண்ணுவாங்க. And before entering, the temple priest used black color cloth to again the Drishti Sutti போட்டு தூரிய கிழிச்சி போட்டு இதெல்லாம் பண்ணி, and in the said hours he reaches the temple again, and into his he is not taken directly into the Garbhagraham. There is this mandapam where he alighted the palanquin, right? So he'll be put there, the palanquin will be parked there, and the murti will be taken to the front mandapam where the archakar has his own personal time. Quite literally, you cannot restrict him. So the rituals there, he only wears, the Alagar Perumal only wears a simple cotton dhoti, and with all his jewelry and devoid of all the garlands and all that was on him for like a week's time, he has his Thirumanjanam. And yeah, after having taken all the offerings, unlimited offerings given by known, unknown and everybody, a big plate full of milagu rasam is prepared and mixed in hot rice. That is offered to Alagar just in case to take care of him. And then they have the Punyaga Vachanam rituals that are performed too. So you can see him, that's the temple priest actually massaging his shoulders and back and arms and all. That's the final Thirumanjanam that happens for the festival before he enters the Garbhagraham. He's just packed with sandal paste and saffron and rose petals and jasmine, and he reaches his Asthanam back. So this is how the 7 days of travel are scheduled, with 3 days before and like 4-5 days even before that as preparatory work. In conclusion, the organizational perfection of this journey of Alagar is amazing. Yeah, I tried my best to make a list of all the agencies involved, starting from the assistant commissioner of the temple, who's put in charge of the whole festival. Of course, it involves all the verticals of the government bureaucracy, all agencies. Of course, non-governmental agencies play a very, very important role too by organizing water and food, and some people also develop the NCC boards in schools. They come in charge of local guarding of people and directing people and managing crowds. So governmental, non-governmental, personal, public, private, all kinds of agencies get involved in it. It is just amazing. The entire state government's missionary, because these are those kind of festivals that needs to reach none but the Honorable Chief Minister himself. Because it invites so many people in place. It is on the government body and the local public to host it. So maintaining records, that's where it first starts. So to coming up with an entire list of Mandagapadis, who, where, when, estimated time, how many of them, whether they have paid their dues from the previous years, and now of late they have come in for a corpus deposit. So if you want to host a Mandagapadi, they charge anywhere between 15 to 20 lakhs as a corpus deposit, and apart from that there is an annual pay that you give every time that he comes to. So those records are dusted, and from January communications and getting it approved, all that happens. The timekeepers for each of the Mandagapadi, because core events are all time laden. The time he leaves Madurai, leaves Alagar Kovil, enters Madurai, enters Vaigai, the Manduga Maharishi Moksham, all that has the time fixed already. And it is very critical by like 13 minutes, 15 minutes time slots within which he should enter. Yeah, so the timekeepers really have a problem in organizing it. They will always be chasing Perumal and his devotees back and forth. So that's how it goes. Their role is immense too. People who carry him. And believe me, it's a voluntary service, and this service is bestowed upon a traditional weavers community, a Tamil-speaking weavers community of Madurai. They are residents of Madurai. It is only them who can carry Alagar from Alagar Koil to Madurai and back, and this is done without any remuneration officially. Unofficially they get paid, but official remuneration there is nothing as such. So they do it as a service to him. But it's a privilege for them. So the securities, the self-appointed securities, those who enact Karuppar's role along with him, who dress up as Karuppar, who carry the torch in their hand and a whip and a cane and walk with him up and down. So their role for the next 7 days to be dressed like that with garland and makeup and all those accessories is not an easy thing. And believe me, they'll sleep on the platforms wherever the Mandagapadi is, whichever Mandapam Alagar stays, just outside, they'll just spread a trampoline sheet and adalapade paduthu thoonguvaanga. If there is a tap, that is enough to be called a bathroom for them. They'll have their bath there, get dressed up again and follow him. I mean, Alagar just runs the show for them, and so they are that way. Assist the temple priest, then the cooks of the temple who carry the prasadam, and the people who chant Divya Prabandham, who travel along with Alagar, so that is also there. You have the official musicians, but unofficial music bands are what make the maximum noise there. So Madurai is famous for all its traditional, the non-classical music instruments that they play. All of it will be there. And each of the Mandagapadi will engage a band of musicians to play for themselves and welcome Alagar in and out. And the security of all the wealth that goes around with Alagar. And most importantly, Thirumalai Andan, one of the Vaishnavite preceptors, who is also one of the acharyas of Sri Ramanujacharya, he was a resident of Alagar Malai. They were the chief religious heads of Alagar Malai. So he also used to travel with Alagar. Till such times that the Andan lineage continued, they will also travel with Alagar in a palanquin for themselves. So the local anecdote is that the phrase is that Andan pallakku munnadi, Alagar pallakku pinnadi. So Andan will lead the procession. Thirumalai Andan in his own palanquin will lead the procession, and Alagar will follow him. Today the lineage is not active anymore, so the tradition is not there. And the Sri Vaishnava Goshti, very cool. They travel in a tempo traveler with him. They precede Alagar, of course, and I got the privilege of interacting with them for like some 20-30 minutes in the tempo traveler as it was going. So each of them will be chanting whatever they like to chant, and it is kind of very cute to see really old people still trying to be a part of the festival by carrying this big bound book of Nalayar Divya Prabandham and flipping through the pages and chanting. And so it's nice to see people from various background being a part of it. This is fully a travel festival. He is always on travel. Whatever are the events that he participates, those are limited to 10-15 minutes max. Be it Manduka Maharishi's Moksham or to get into the waters of Vaigai. All of it is like limited to 12-15 minutes max. But the travel is what that counts. I would say it has been a tremendously a socially binding factor, which was of course Thirumala Nayakar's brainchild to invite people from all around Madurai, and this tradition to continue for like 4 centuries at a stretch with the flavor increasing every year. It is just amazing. So Meenakshi's festival on the south and Alagar's festival on the north, Vaigai kind of becomes active, and quite literally the gap is bridged between Vaigai. This is a festival of the city. Yeah, I mean, just transcending any kind of barriers, all kinds of people, social, economic, cultural, religious, linguistic, nothing comes in the way of a devotee's love for Alagar. Yeah, irrespective of what their age is, caste, community, gender, religion, they all participate, they all have a role to play in this festival. I think festivals have this social commitment too, in its own way. Whichever temple festival it is, without the neighborhood's participation, it's not going to happen. So that is here at a city level. It's not just limited to a neighborhood. The entire city participates in it, and the organizers and the participants, so all of them. In conclusion, is this a direct reflection of their religious belief? Most certainly, yes. That's the primary idea. So it is the religious traditions that are upheld year after year. So that is really so beautifully handled there. Is this improving spiritual thoughts? Yes. If spiritual belief system brings in brotherhood, if it makes differences disappear, if it binds people together, this is very, very spiritually uplifting a moment. Is this strengthening the society? Certainly, yes. I think the fever of Alagar is there even after 10 days after he leaves, and people get to meet each other. And in many cases, marriage arrangements, engagements all happen on the banks of Vaigai with this festival. Yeah, so the families invite the Kodandhaikku mottai adikkirathu, kaadu kuttirathu, all that is happening as a part of this festival. As he enters Vaigai, in one corner of the riverbed, some small pandal will be there and the kaadu kuttu will be happening. So it is definitely bringing the society together. All verticals of culture gets a place here, starting from food, dress, music, dance, rituals, traditions, belief systems. All that is of culture is a part in it. it is definitely improving the local economy. There are villages, in fact, not just families, I would say entire village of Karyapatti still making its fortune by attending to those water bags requirement. They tend it, they season it, and the bags are there. They tan it and bring it in place. They make a good money. In fact, many interviews are there on YouTube. You can see how in those 3 months they make a good amount of money. Else they are only agricultural laborers, most of them. So this is one way of bringing in traditional, to support economy. Finally, with all of this happening, who are all benefited out of this festival? The people, yes, first and foremost, it definitely enhances their social thoughts. They are getting back to the roots, holding on to the culture as they swim across to meet modern requirements. So they are benefited. The temple, yes, as I told you, the hundis and all of it keeps coming, and Alagar makes his way into every household. So the temple is certainly benefited. The governing authority, yes, this is one chance for them to prove, and they are like year after year making the best of this festival to try and make it however comfortable for the people. In fact, the app I was telling you was a brainchild of one of the corporation commissioners some 6-8 years back that he suggested to a bunch of youngsters who came up with it, and it became a super hit. So from the local auto walas to tea shops and all these micro level economic enterprises, they are all taken care of because of Alagar's 1 week visit. And the last and the most important beneficiary is none but Alagar himself. As he says, I shall wait till the last member of the world becomes my devotee and I grant him place at Vaikuntham. That's why I'm going to stand here. Till such times, I'll be a resident of Alagar Malai. That's what he has promised. So every year coming to Madurai, I'm sure he's going to earn hundreds of new devotees/fans for himself who are going to be really committed for him. So he himself, I would say, is a beneficiary. This year, I had the good fortune of meeting this digital cartoonist who is very popular on social media. Yeah, so you can actually check out on his handle. He specializes in Madurai festivals. So he has these beautiful little images that he paints, and it is very popular on social media, I should say. Adds on music to it. So this is Alagar's representation for him. He for that day, both Alagar, Meenakshi, Karuppar, they all have been combined and bought in his digital representation. In the Varsham, last day of the Mandagapadi, in one of the Mandagapadis, the Archakar lost his cool. Apparently, one in the devotees in the crowd tried to touch Perumal, and he came so close to him, and the Archakar really lost his cool, and he started pouncing on him, quite literally. This also became popular on social media. Literally, this also became popular in social media, and this became a subject for the artist to come up with a digital painting too. And then he actually made a printed portrait and took it to the Archakar's place, and there was an interview with the priest also. I mean, a little event that probably binds together two different individuals who were on their own paths, probably with less chances to meet, but Alagar gave them both a chance to interact, and this is very popular today too. So Alagar's presence in Madurai, I think whatever Nammalvar felt for him, as he says, என்னை முற்றும் உயிர் உண்டான் மாய ஆக்கை இதனுள் புக்கு என்னை முற்றும் தானேயாய் நின்று மாய அம்மான் சேர் தென்னன் திருமாலிருஞ்சோலை திசை கூப்பி சேர்ந்தையான் இன்னம் போவேனேகொலோ என்கொலம்மான் திருவருளே. He says, all that I did was to face the direction of Thiruppudaimarudur, and I did one Anjali. That was enough for him to invite himself to my place, invite himself in me, eat me, became me, and nothing of me remains anymore. This is what Nammalvar had experienced 1400 odd years back with respect to Alagar, and he has been the same. Kuratthalvan, one other Vaishnavite preceptor, a disciple of Ramanujacharya, stayed for a brief while in Alagar Malai, and he has composed a set of 120 odd songs on Alagar called as Sundarabahu Stavam. It's a stavam wherein he finds this very interesting difference between Alagar and other gods, and this is what Alagar is till date. He says, Yad Jhatiyo, Yad Drisho, Yad Swabhavo, Padachayam, Samsmrita, Yopi Kopihi, Tadjatiya, Tadrisha, Tatswabhavat, Slishyetyenam, Sundara, Vatsalatvat. Your compassion, hey Sundara, is very new to me. Your devotees, whichever Jhati they belong to, Yad Jhatiyo, whatever is their faith, yad dhrisho, yad swabhavaha, whatever their gunas are, you tend yourself, rather you mend yourself to suit that community, that drishti and that swabhavam. This is your compassion. And I think Alagar follows this till date. So whatever is the devotee's way of devotion, Alagar acknowledges it, accepts it, and whatever he is offering, he is just taking it. Imagine any other Perumal being splashed with the water filled in a leather bag, goat's hide, and that's being nozzled on him. It's not a tradition anywhere. But here, that is the tradition. Because that's what the people there know. Those are the accessories that they have access to, and that's what they can offer. So if that is what they can offer, Alagar is more than happy to accept it. I think Thiruppudaimarudur from 11th century has recorded this, and for almost 1,000 years, this swabhavam of Alagar, expressing his compassion, unlimited compassion to his own devotees, has been there. Last, of all the jewelry in Alagar Kovil, a pair of stirrups offered by Thirumalai Nayakar with emerald and ruby embedded in it is very, very popular. That's Alagar's holy feet as he rides the horse. That's the stirrup where he is balancing himself. But this is gemstone studded, so they replaced it with a gold one. So this is not used anymore. There is this local tradition where people say there is always this comparison between Srirangam and Alagar Kovil for the kind of wealth that both the Perumals enjoy and the rituals that are there. So the local phrase which says, Arangan Sottu Alagar Angavadikku Kaanadu. Angavadi is the stirrup. Yeah, whatever is the wealth of Ranganatha, whatever he has, nothing can even come close. All of it put together cannot come close to one stirrup that Alagar has. So, Arangan Sottu, Alagar Angavadikku Kaanadunu, Alagar Koil people will call this out very with pride. So, this is where I started. Sing him not, I warn you. This is what Alvar said. If some of you in the audience want to visit Alagar as soon as possible and probably participate in Alagar's Vaigai festival next year, don't blame me. That is what Alagar is for you. That is what Nammalvar has faced from Alagar for having sung Alagar. Alvar, the most matured, the most seasoned devotee in the entire Vaishnava tradition, he says that I just thought of him for a moment and he devoured me and he became me. I don't see myself anymore. That is what is Alagar capable of. Thank you.
Thank you for taking us on that scintillating journey, and I'm sure many here are inspired to be there in person to witness it, the flowers, the water showers, and all of that. Absolutely wonderful journey that you took us on. And just a small comment, just like they banned the, cock fights or the animal fights, I wish they would ban the flex banners too. If there's, in the interest of time, can I just say maybe 2 questions and very brief, please?
Yeah, the steps there at the door represents Kalpaswam. His presence was right there, and we believe that as a tradition, somebody he abandoned the door, and we believe the of course from the Nayaka period, but he is not the one who is participating in it. It's Veeraragava Perumal on the silver horse. இல்லை ஐ மீன் இவரும் பெருமாள் தானே, இவரே பெருமாள் தானே, எதுவும் வித்தியாசம் இல்லையே, ஏற்றி சொல்கிறதுக்கு இதில் ஒன்றும் இல்லையே. அஃப்கோர்ஸ் எஸ், அழகர் பெருமாள் தான், சந்தேகமே இல்லை.
அந்த மாதிரி
ஹஸ்பண்ட் ஒன்றுமே இல்லை. சிவபெருமான் தனியாக அங்கே இருக்கார், சுந்தரர் இருக்கார், இவர் பெருமாள். இதில் அந்த மாதிரி எதுவும் குழப்பத்துக்கு இடம்
சார் ரொம்ப நன்றி சார்.
Just request you all to stay for a couple of minutes. The children are here for the prizes.
சார் ரொம்ப ஒரு விஷயம் சார். இந்த ஸ்ரீ வைஷ்ணவர்கள்லாம் ஒவ்வொரு பெருமாளுக்கும் ஒரு பேர் சொல்லி கொடுக்குறாங்க. இவரை வந்து ரவுடி பெருமாள்னு சொல்றாங்க. ஏன் சார் அது?
ஏன்னா மதுரையினுடைய அந்த நேச்சருக்கு இவர் தான் சூட் ஆவார். எந்த ஸ்ட்ரீட்டுக்குள்ளனா எப்படி வேணா போவார், எந்த வீட்டுக்குள்ள வேணா எப்படி வேணா நுழைவார். அழகருடைய ட்ரெடிஷன் வந்து அந்த ஊருக்கானதாகவே உருவாயிடுச்சு. அதனால ரவுடி பெருமாள்.
In the conclusion, please include, you mentioned that Malai Patti, it records the local flora also. So, the culture, அது பயிர் பண்ணணும் இல்லையா?
நிச்சயமா garden making has so much of cultural to it.
Final point, அது very important.
Valid point. அது அழகு.
Thank you for taking us to Madurai.
Thank you. Pleasure.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
May I recognize the winners of My Monument Search Competition. The regional winners, Rashna Jacob of Sacred Heart Education School. Wish you all the best. It's doubly special because it's my alma mater as well. Regional winner, Kanishka from Sri Ramaswamy Mudaliar Higher Secondary School, Ambattur. Congratulations. Chennai winners, Fauzia Jasmine, Sacred Heart Matriculation High School. Second, Divya, also Sacred Heart Matriculation High School. I must add here that I had nothing to do with influencing these decisions. They were all made in Delhi by a national jury. She hasn't come. There's a third prize for Arushi from Sarmuta School, but she has not come, I think. As in the Olympics, we do the national winner, the last, P. Pranami of AMM School. The national winner will get to go to Delhi for a 3-day trip, and they will be, inducted into what is heritage, and they will be taken to museums and to some heritage sites, and that would be a wonderful experience for you. Congratulations. Thank you all so much for being a patient audience, and thank you, Madhusudhanan, again for a wonderful evening. Thank you very much.